Duality 1. The Force of the Gods by Mark Tuson. Narrated for you by the author. Author's note. Before we get started, I'd like to beg your pardon for these following few moments of self-indulgence. It feels like a lifetime ago that I first sat down to write this story, shortly after completing the first piece of fiction that I went on to publish, Singularity. But really it's been just about 9 years. It wasn't long after New Year 2015, and I'd written this story for the sake of doing something productive with my time, because my own life at that point wasn't too dissimilar to Peter Rutherford's. Though I wasn't homeless, I was still out of work 2 years after completing a degree in software development, and frustrated about not having much to do with my time. But that's not why I wrote this story. There was no intended statement about the misfortune of my situation or fantasy that I could be Peter Rutherford. This particular story had been kicking around in the back of my mind since I was about 14, in various incarnations, and my very first attempts at writing it took place starting not long after. Well, I say attempts. What I really mean is aborted drafts of first chapters. There were attempts where Peter was in his 30s at the start of the story, and there were attempts where he was a teenager. There were even much earlier attempts where the character who became Peter was a secondary character, and the main protagonist was an enemy soldier who had defected. This will sound familiar to you later on. That said, the story as I ended up telling it had taken shape pretty much completely in my mind by 2 years or so before I actually started writing, while I was still at university. That was when I started writing the chapter-by-chapter breakdown for what became Journeyman. Now, I'm not telling you all this because I think you really need to know all the details of how The Force of the Gods was written. After all, the process of writing a book is doubtless very boring to all but a writer. But to make the point that stories evolve. If you look at the copyright for this edition, you'll see it was first published individually in 2015, Journeyman, 2017, Regent, 2018, Dawnbringer, as a single collected edition in 2019, while this edition is copyright 2024. That's because this is a revision.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?